Yes, indeed. Mark Meets is the moment in the show when I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, showbiz, sport, business and beyond. Tonight, they don't come much bigger in the world of politics than Gina Miller. Although never a member of Parliament, Gina was integral in the years leading up to our departure from the European Union. To many, she's a hero seeking to give Parliament a say in a seismic constitutional decision. Others see her as somebody who tried to stop Brexit, something that she vehemently denies. A businesswoman and campaigner, Gina Miller has twice led legal challenges against the government and won. Her first victory came in September 2017 when the Supreme Court ruled in favour of giving MPs a say over triggering Article 50, the legal mechanism taking Britain out of the EU. Her second came on later when the Supreme Court ruled that Boris Johnson's decision to suspend Parliament was unlawful. Do you remember that, when he prorogued Parliament? Her success in the courts has come at a price. She has become a hate figure for some Brexit supporters and has had to employ around-the-clock security and threats to her life, which is absolutely shocking and reprehensible. She has fans, but she's got detractors too, but she's also got courage and zeal. And her enthusiasm for the right cause knows no bounds, which will come in useful because she has set up a brand new party, the True and Fair Party. And naturally, she is their leader. I'm delighted to say Gina Miller joins me now. Gina, great to have you in the studio.
Lovely to meet you, Mark.
It's great to have you on the show. You've successfully sued the government twice in the face of quite serious opposition. You've got some bottle, haven't you?
I don't know about that. I mean, I don't tend to think about things that way. I just think if there's something wrong, we've got to address it. And people think I popped up from nowhere 6 years ago. I've actually been a campaigner for nearly 30 years, so I didn't just pop up overnight. I've managed to make enemies around charities, the financial services sector, modern-day slavery, wherever I've seen things that I think are wrong. So, you know, I'm pretty good at making enemies.
Well, to paraphrase Winston Churchill, he said, if you haven't made any enemies in your life, you haven't done much.
Well, I think it's more about, standing up for what you believe in. And that tends to come with people who disagree with you. But then that's healthy if people disagree with you.
There are lots of people that watch this show, that watch this channel, who are enthusiastic Brexit supporters. But notwithstanding the politics of it, which we'll come to, you have shown amazing physical and mental forbearance over many years. First of all, where do you get the energy from?
I'm a survivor. I mean, I've started talking about things when it was very unpopular. So, you know, I started my journey 30-odd years ago with my eldest daughter who has special needs, and I was told that she was going to be taken away and put into a home. And I said, absolutely no way. And my first sort of win was getting statements available for everybody. Yeah. So that's what I did in the Special Educations Act in 1996. I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and I was told at that time, you know, people who are well-educated women don't suffer domestic violence, you know, 16, 17 years ago.
Strong women.
Strong women. You know, there are lots of myths around domestic violence. It happens to stupid women or weak women or people who can't stand up. That's complete nonsense. It can happen anywhere, anytime. So again, you know, lots of people said, oh, you should stay quiet. You shouldn't talk about that because that's shining a light on things people don't want to know about. So I think because I've survived some very traumas in my life, you know, with my eldest daughter, because of that marriage, I ended up living in a car for 3 weeks with nothing. You know, I've survived. And so I have strength that comes from failure, actually, not from success.
So it means that you're not afraid of the consequences of things because you've been at some very low points in your life.
No, I mean, if the person you love then tries to kill you, there's not a lot else other people can do to you.
Was it that bad?
Yeah.
Quite shocking. You came to the UK at the age of 10. Remarkable story. You attended a private school, and then at a certain point your parents were not allowed. Well, tell me about your family background for a start. So where were you born? I
was born in what was British Guiana. Is now Guyana. It was one of the last countries to get independence from the Commonwealth. And ironically, I came to the UK because my father had set up a political party against a dictator. And the very charismatic leader was killed in a car bomb. My elder brother and I were then, my parents found out we were on the list of people that would be sort of taken out. And so they sent us over here to be safe, found a tiny little school in Eastbourne, about as far away from South America, 3,500 miles as you could find. But then 2 years into me being here, they imposed currency restrictions, so my parents couldn't send any money to us. So I took it on myself to walk down the seafront in Eastbourne and get myself a job. So at 14, I was chambermaiding at 5 to 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, then going to school.
And so that added to your sense of resourcefulness and independence.
I think I've always been an annoying little girl who just got up and did things.
Well, let's talk about the annoying aspect of it, because there will be many people watching this who will be thinking, there's the person who tried to stop Brexit, a democratic mandate to take Britain out of the European Union, the biggest plebiscite in British history. At that point, when the votes come in, because I voted Remain, but when the result came in, it's like, OK, we're out.
And I'm on record the day after saying we're all Brexiteers now.
Okay.
I'm actually on record saying that, because I do believe in democracy and I do believe in that.
You didn't act like it, though, did you? You didn't act like
Absolutely, I did. Because if we had left without abiding by the law, we would... I mean, we're now, look at where we are now, talking about government breaking international law. If they had just triggered Article 50, they would have been breaking international law. It was about parliamentary sovereignty, the very thing that people were talking about. And so Parliament had to have a say. And in the second case, it was exactly that, because Boris was putting himself above the law and trying to shut down Parliament. We don't have a direct democracy. We have a representative democracy. So things have to go in front of Parliament. And that was what I was fighting for. Because for me, the consequence of not doing that would have been worse than actually going through the pain and the abuse that I got.
Well, and by the way, the pain and the abuse is reprehensible, completely upsetting. And I'm really shocked by reading in further detail about what you've been through. And I think you're a remarkable human being. But I think that politically it was the wrong thing to do, to sue the government in this way, because if those, and you're not arguably not one of them, but if those in Parliament who did want to thwart Brexit had their way, we would have faced not a constitutional or legal crisis, but a democratic one.
So there was nothing in the case. If anybody wants to go and read the case that I submitted and the judgment, there was nothing that we could do to stop Brexit. So, and actually, the timetable, we were very, very careful to make sure that the timetable fitted into when Mrs May wanted to go to Parliament.
But it helped the opposition and opposition Remain parties to attempt to thwart Brexit. So you might not have set out to do that.
No, it was a vote. So it was a vote, and it was a vote that went through. That's all that it brought, was to say the Parliament couldn't be out of the process. That was simply what the case was doing. It was saying a Prime Minister on their own couldn't use prerogative powers to change our lives. And actually, looking where we are now, I would say it was probably a good thing that I confirmed that the Prime Minister just couldn't decide what was going to happen to us on a daily basis.
And here's another question for you. Did this, and I understand you sort of have a legal and constitutional point of view with regard to that action against the government, but we got a harder Brexit as a result, didn't we? Because Theresa May's withdrawal agreement was effectively involved being in a customs union. It would have been a softer Brexit. In the end, there is absolute stalemate in Parliament because Parliament just couldn't sign off this withdrawal agreement. We had an election. Boris gets a landslide because voters in the Red Wall think, look, we want to get Brexit done. And we got a far harder Brexit as a result.
That's not up to me. That's up to Parliament. All I did was make sure Parliament had their say.
As somebody that isn't overly keen on the principle of Brexit, you must regret that history has played out to give Britain a harder Brexit.
Absolutely not, because where we are now, if I hadn't done what I've done, we would be in a worse place where we are now. We have to obey international law. We have to be part of a community globally where people can look at us and say, Britain is a country that respects the rule of law, does not go behind people's back, does not shut down courts, does not behave like a dictatorship. And that's actually what I preserved. And that's more important, actually, in the long term than what happens at the moment.
But if your legal action against the government had been successfully leveraged by Remainers, which they tried to do to stop Brexit and have a second referendum, if that referendum was to stay, I fear for civil order in this country.
Well, so would I.
Far worse than breaking a few international laws.
Well, no, it isn't, because actually we live in a whole world.
A democratic crisis in this country could manifest itself in civil disobedience,
okay, I don't know
violence. I mean, I don't even want to go there, don't you think?
No, absolutely not at all. Because the thing is, think about I don't know which political party you vote for.
Do you know I voted for all of them in my life? Okay, I'm a tart.
So
I might go free and fair. We're going to talk about your policy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been pretty. I've voted for lots of different parties too. But the thing is, you cannot have people in power who do not abide by the law. That is a fundamental principle of how we operate as a country. It doesn't matter any more than that. That is the basic bottom truth, is that no Prime Minister can put themselves above the law. And that is what I will stand by for every day and all day and fight for. Our Prime Ministers cannot do that.
You know what? The little angel on my right-hand shoulder is agreeing with you. about international law, and the devil on my left shoulder is saying, well, by having this probity when it came to our triggering of Article 50, doing it through Parliament, we risked a democratic crisis. What about the issue of the Northern Ireland Protocol? This is a deeply immoral treaty that splits our country down the middle. I can't think of an example in history where an organisation outside of a specific territory has dictated the borders and boundaries of a country. In this case,
so
Brussels.
Why did Boris design it, sign it, and actually put it into law?
Well, partly because he inherited Theresa May's botched withdrawal agreement.
No, he could have changed it at any time. No, he designed...
He got rid of the backstop, which was a miracle in itself.
Look, he signed the deal, he designed it and signed it, and actually in Article 16, there's a whole process of how you renegotiate. The NIP, as it's called, the NIP bill, the Northern Ireland Protocol bill, is a complete and utter waste of time and our public money at the moment when we're going through, especially when we're going through a cost of living crisis. There are mechanisms within Article 16, which is a safeguarding clause to renegotiate, and we can be at the table anytime. The EU is behaving as badly as the UK. There is no need for this, and I think it's disgraceful that it's being used as political football, because both of them are playing games, and I wish they'd grow up and get round the table and realise that you don't need this to trigger Article 16. You just need to be grown-ups around the table.
Well, here's hoping, and I certainly would hope for a negotiated solution, because the issue is that with the EU overzealously policing that border, disproportionately in relation to the kind of trade that moves around the EU.
They're not that far apart.
But the issue is that they risk restarting the troubles. We know union groups in Northern Ireland are extremely angry. That country is divided.
Actually, if you go to Northern Ireland, they're not. Actually,
unionist groups are.
No. If you go over to Northern Ireland, first of all, they're not doing too badly because of it, and they're benefiting
effectively in the single market.
They're effectively in the single market. The Alliance supporters, the new generation that are coming up, are actually not as aggravated as the past generations are. The peace is not as fragile as people think. But one of the things I'll say is when I say about a grown-up conversation, basically what they're arguing about, the EU wants a fast-track lane and the UK wants a red and a green lane. That's literally what they're arguing about. So that's what I mean about getting around the table and having a grown-up conversation. It's resolvable.
Right, and here's the thing, isn't it, the poison pill for the EU to swallow is that a member nation, which was the UK, left the bloc, except that it has a geographical border with an ongoing member state, which is the Republic of Ireland. And the sticking point is the EU's desire to protect the integrity of the single market.
Why wouldn't they?
Right,
it's their union.
Totally agree. But we live in the real world. You're a realist. You've been through a lot in your life. And you will agree that you can't argue with geography.
No, you can't.
Tough luck.
You can't.
The EU will have to accept, in the end, they cannot protect the integrity of the single market to the extent that they could on the continent. It's just not going to be possible.
They just need to go back.
They've got to let it go. Let it go, baby.
Well, they've got to go to where they were in February, which was nearly agreeing on where the lanes were going to be. Just get back to that. But the problem is that the people who are negotiating, who are nearly there, need political direction. And it's the political direction that they're not getting. And so all the different countries, different players here, the politicians are using it for their own domestic gain. And that's what's got to change, because we do live in the real world. The geography is not going to change. We are in a cost of living crisis. Things are going to get much worse. They've got to resolve this.
Well, definitely. We will talk about your policy platform in just a moment. Final bit on the EU. And I take your point that you were not out there to thwart Brexit. You just took this legal position, which I respect and understand. What about Brexit itself? Since we voted to leave in 2016, the accumulated rate of GDP in the UK over 6 years has been 6.8%. That includes the pandemic. France, 6.2%, Germany, 5.5%, Italy, 2.1%. Italy now has a national debt which is equivalent to 150% of its GDP. Ours is around 100%. Brexit's going quite well, isn't it?
Well, we don't know yet. We've had a pandemic. What we do know is, to counter your figures, is that OBIR have said that actually in last quarter of 2021, which they could measure as Brexit because it was difficult with COVID to separate the two, that we're down 31 billion hole in GDP. If you look at foreign investment, that's already down, because it's not just trade, it's about attracting foreign investment.
Well,
that's down 17%
we didn't have a brain drain in the city, did we?
No, that was exaggerated. We were never going to have this huge
draw.
brain.
Well, lots of project...
Look, I work in city. It's my world. You know, I work in financial world.
And it's thriving.
We don't know yet. There's been a downturn, and we don't really know exactly.
Well, we voted to leave in 2016. We were told when that vote would come in, if we voted to leave,
Look, I disagreed with all
there'd
that.
be a run on the pound.
Oh, I disagreed with all that scaremongering.
What about the amazing vaccine rollout that we did independently of the EU? The EU threatening to erect a hard border.
No. The vaccine programme was a plus. You can't say everything is a negative and a plus. What we do know is that every sector...
The EU's got its knickers in a twist about Ukraine.
Hang on, you can't...
Germany is bankrolling Vladimir Putin's war machine.
Every sector in the UK is suffering...
The EU are having a nightmare.
Excuse me. Every sector in the UK is suffering with staff shortages. We have paperwork that's exasperating everything for all of us.
Paperwork's bad.
It's absolutely terrible.
Small businesses are suffering.
We have to have free movement in some sectors, or else those sectors will disappear. We haven't got businesses that are going to survive in SME sector. We actually look at the reports after report. There is a downturn.
Companies are suffering. Companies are suffering.
We have got to get... Basically, there are three things. Brexit has happened. We need to reduce the downside, and we need to have grown-up conversations. That's what needs to happen.
And a grown-up conversation will happen on your watch, because you're formidable,
I'm not sure
scarily clever. Lots of my viewers disagree with your actions, but, one has to just acknowledge, as I say, your principle and your determination, and also what you've been through personally. I think it is really tough, and it's quite outrageous that you've had to even have security, and that is disgraceful. Let's talk about the future, the sunny uplands, which is
Yes.
all this energy. I suspect you've probably moved on a bit from Brexit now,
Yeah.
and so now we've got your new political party, which, remind me the name of it?
True and Fair.
True and Fair, which I know is a kind of existing brand based upon your charitable work and your brilliant campaigns. So will you be fielding candidates in a future general election?
We will. Can I just say, first of all, I always said I'd never go into politics.
Yes.
So I'm a very reluctant politician.
Famous last words.
I know, famous last words, but I'm looking at where we are. My fundamental problem is I don't think we have a system that's fit for purpose for the things we have coming down the line. Politicians are not looking at things that we know, for example, that 42% of jobs in the future are going to be affected by automation. If we have so few people in work, who's going to pay taxes into our economy? How do we get growth? How do we deal with climate change? We're talking about boats across the channel. What about mass movement of people because of climate change? We have massive issues coming down the track. And my view is, unless we fix the machinery of government, we get better people who concentrate and make rules, look where we are now, that actually have checks and balances. We don't get better policy, and we don't get better politics and better outcomes for people. So that's what I'm trying to set our stall out, and people can accept it or not.
And where are you in the spectrum politically as a party? Are you sort of
I think completely outdated.
Blairite, centre
No,
ground?
I mean, that's all yesterday.
Are you a wet Tory?
None of those things.
Are you a Corbynite?
I think that's
I don't know what Starmer is.
No. I think that's
I'm
I'm
got
not.
A cervix?
I don't believe that any of that is applicable today. I think
you don't think left and right works.
No, it's about right and wrong, and that's
agree.
it. It's right and wrong. That's yesterday's politics, and we've got to be about long-term sustainable solutions that are about fairness in people's lives and telling people the truth, because things are going to get tough. Things are going to get tough.
And it's not communism, is it, or anything like that?
No, I don't. No, I don't think so. I'm maybe a benevolent dictator.
The thing is, you've got a social conscience, but you are a capitalist as well, aren't you?
I'm a responsible capitalist. I think what's happening, today, if you look at, what BT did today, it's absolutely despicable for them to be saying that their employees can't get a pay rise when their chief exec got a 32% pay rise last year and a 3.5%
Wait a minute.
pay.
Does this mean that under Prime Minister Gina Miller we're going to have spiralling inflation?
No, we won't.
You're giving everyone a pay rise. How are we going to pay for that?
No. It's about businesses being more responsible in the way they run their businesses and treat their customers. And that means not just pursuit of profit.
Brilliant. Now, how can we find out more about the True and Fair Party?
Well, True and Fair Party, the website's there, trueandfairparty.uk. We are going to field candidates. You'll hear some news about our candidate selection programme, which opens in a couple of weeks. I've spent the last 2 weeks going around the country, and I have to say, Mark, one of the things I find really, really upsetting is I didn't actually know, I will confess this, I didn't know how broken our country was. The poverty I've seen, the living conditions I've seen, parents not eating. We've got to do something to make our country better.
And on that, we can agree. A privilege to have you on the show. Really fascinating conversation. I reiterate that lots of people will be raging about some of your actions in the past. But I just don't think one can question your integrity or indeed your, as I said earlier, your brass neck and your bottle. Brilliant stuff. Do come and see us again soon. Gina Miller, fascinating conversation. Your reaction to that interview. Please give me the good, the bad and the indifference. Mark at gbnews.uk.